And welcome to the Scarlet and Great podcast, I guess you could say, but this is strictly for YouTube. So I bring on a good friend, Dylan Freeman. Dylan, how are you doing? You've been a contributor to our show for so long. It's good to see your face and good to see you on the show now that we're on YouTube. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. Staying busy. How about you, Corey?
Same thing. I can't get a break. It's ridiculous, especially with the new stuff we're doing here. Dylan, a quick thing about your background. We want to discuss something real quick about a Buckeye commitment. A quick thing about your background. You've been a scout in your past, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so when you look at film, you actually know what you're looking at. I mean, as opposed to like somebody like myself who's just a fan is like, he looks good, I guess.
Definitely.
Dylan's like, I'm going to keep quiet on that one.
No offense to you, Johnny.
Yeah, no offense to Johnny. Johnny, jeez. Anyway, no Johnny for this, obviously. We didn't talk about it on the show because I wanted to bring an expert on to talk about it. We obviously Buckeyes just recently got a commitment by a 5-star quarterback out of Texas, Quinn Ewers, and 2022 for those who wondering. And we know the stream of quarterbacks we got already in the program that are coming down the pike, like Kyle McCord from Pennsylvania in 2021. People are obviously excited about C.J. Stroud, and they should be excited about Jack Miller, but I don't see as much excitement, unfortunately, about him. I'm just being real, and I'm excited about him. I think he's going to be fun. One of those guys is going to be fine. But now this guy, Quinn Ewers, one of the most highly rated quarterback commits, period, in Ohio State history. I think he's just behind Terrell Pryor. Dylan, start off with this. How big of a commitment was this for the national landscape for Ohio State football?
It's huge, not necessarily just from the aspect that he's like you mentioned, that one of the highest rated commits ever. However, he's also a very vocal kid on the recruiting scene. It's a big deal, and especially in today's game, the players and their recruits are probably more important than the actual coaching staff. And as you've seen on social media, these kids are always teasing each other and hyping each other up and trying to get each other to commit. So not even necessarily from the actual play standpoint, but just from the national landscape. I mean, you guys all know about the Caleb Williams effect and how it was portrayed to go down. However, this isn't Oklahoma. This is Ohio State. So we have the coaches and we have these kids. So, I mean, I see a lot of the kids, especially Texas wide receivers right now, like Evan Stewart and Amani Winfield, that we're getting quite a bit of looks, but we hadn't really been talked about. But Ewers has made it very clear that he's going to be recruiting these guys, and these guys play on the 7-on-7s and things like that together, and they know each other, and they compete in the same. A lot of them compete in the same conferences, and so they get a chance to be around each other. And especially with someone as vocal as Ewers, he's gonna push for Ohio State and get in all these kids' ears. That, I mean, a lot of kids, same Ohio quarterback might not have the same presence nationally as someone like Quinn.
That makes a really good point because obviously it's a big splash no matter what. And obviously other players around the country take notice of this. And I will say that he was committed to Texas for a while. Here's an interesting, because you just discussed the fact that he is going to be recruiting kids to Ohio State. There was a person on a Texas message board that made a great point. It's like Quinn Ewers, of all people, couldn't get anybody to join him at Texas. What does that say for the state of the program down south with Tom Herman?
Yeah, I mean, they don't want to play for him. They kind of see what he is and how he handles it and how he acts on the field, and not just like on the field, but apparently he was, I don't have any information on this, but he was talking apparently bad about Ewers' family and
I hope not.
And especially if that is come to true, I mean, that's not a good look that's not a good look for the program at all. And that's going to come back and hurt you in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's just immediately, though, obviously it's going to make waves for Ohio State, and it's his loss, our gain. And that's really got to be embarrassing for Tom Herman to lose that quarterback. But also really quick before we get into his play, he may be bringing a couple buddies with him, and we may be hearing a boom here really soon because we're recording this at 6:11 Eastern on Monday. Look, we know what's coming. You know what's coming, but do you like to say for certain in recruiting ever, even to the last minute? We think possibly Caleb Burton, wide receiver out of Texas, is going to be a Buckeye, at least in name, or on the sheet of paper anyway, this evening around 8 p.m. sort of ish. I mean, we think it's going to happen, but do you like to say for sure ever in today's recruiting world? I mean,
why not to?
Yeah, it's like I know for a fact a guy who knew Urban Meyer said when Emory Jones was committing to Ohio State, Urban Meyer literally told him Emory Jones is going to commit on this day, and it ended up being like 2 weeks later. I mean, even Urban can be wrong. That's how crazy it is. So I don't like to say definitively, but we expect Caleb Burton to be a Buckeye here soon. How big? I mean, Caleb's been leading Ohio State for a while anyway, but how big is it to put for Quinn Ewers to commit to Ohio State? How much does that put a guy like Caleb Burton over the top for Ohio State?
They had a good chance to land him before, and I think they probably could have, but it was going to be a battle to the end if Quinn wasn't a Buckeye, and having him commit, and that kind of really pushed him over the top and let him know that that's his quarterback. I mean, he's been very vocal about he's going to play with Quinn, and that's why early on everyone assumed that Burton was going to be a Longhorn, just because he didn't necessarily even have them as the top school, but just because he really wanted to play with Ewers and he has that connection. And that's kind of like same with the Fields and Olave. You know what I mean? They know each other. They have that connection, and that's what he wants in college, especially when you already know that connection. Because, I mean, a lot of times these are national kids, and so, like, you don't really get to play with them as much. But having that in Texas, and, I mean, they work out all the time together. And so having that connection that they already know going hand, he made sure that he knows that he wants to play with Quinn, and I think that's going to just push them over the top, and it should be soon that he is committing. Wow,
it's Ohio State is owning the state of Texas right now in recruiting. It's pretty crazy that that little Northeast type, well, Midwest, but Northeast compared to Texas, that state up there is just dominating recruiting. I mean, look at the guys we've gotten: Jeff Okudah, Baron Browning, J.K. Dobbins. I'm sure there's more. I'm just blanking at the moment, but just a number of great recruits out of the state of Texas. Of course, Garrett Wilson. How am I going to forget him? So now you get Quinn Ewers, and it looks like Caleb Burton. Is there anybody else, real quick, before we get into Quinn's play, that we could be looking at in the state of Texas?
Imani Winfield, the wide receiver, and Evan, I think it's Evan Stewart, the wide receiver as well. He's one of the fastest kids in the country, and they compare him to Jalen Waddle. And so that's pretty big.
We could use a Jalen Waddle. That'd be nice.
That's what that's what Saban is talking to him about. And that's how he sees him fitting in the offense. And I mean, he blew out like past Drew Donnelly, the wide receiver in Texas, and track. And so he's a pretty fast kid, and he's kind of playmaker that was getting a serious look before, but we didn't really no one really talked about. But he's getting more attention recently from the staff, especially with Quinn being in Day's ear.
Yeah, well, I mean, when Quinn speaks, you got to listen, So, all right, getting on to Quinn himself now. Obviously, we talked about the rating, one of the highest rated kids ever to be committed to Ohio State. Big splash nationally. What is it about Quinn? Let's start with one, I guess, topic with him. A lot of people talk about his arm strength. I mean, he's a junior in high school. It seems to be elite. Now, I don't put a whole lot of stock in it because you can throw it really far. That means you have great arm strength. I mean, can you put it 30 yards on a rope? That to me is more important.
20-yard out routes are sometimes much more important than if you can throw a 50-yard deep ball and no one's covering you,
Can he make those throws already?
Yes, he has a very live arm. He gets pretty good zip on his ball, and I mean, he's still a pretty thin kid. I mean, he's 6'3", 195 pounds. I mean, he's going to put on another 15, 20 pounds by the time he gets actually playing at Ohio State. And so he has a pretty good arm right now, but it's just going to continue to get stronger and stronger, but he can still make the throws already. So
arm strength's never going to be an issue with this kid, is what you're saying. No. Because, I mean, we have flashbacks. I'm sorry to bring up J.T. Barrett, another Texas kid who, we always like, man, if he just had a stronger arm, it'd be nice. So, but we seem to see that going forward. Jack Miller has a solid arm. C.J. Stroud has a solid arm. Kyle McCord has a solid arm, but we're not getting any more of these, kind of dual threat guys who just throw kind of okay. I mean, we almost had Dwan Matthews, who I consider a JT-like player. So it's setting the tone for a different kind of quarterback we're going for with Ryan Day, right? Yeah, Ryan Day wants a quarterback that can scramble in the pocket and make plays down the field. I mean, he obviously wants someone in today's game. You have to have someone that can move in the pocket and out of the pocket, even pick up 4 or 5 yards here and there that just keeps the defense honest. Even if you're not going to run them a whole lot, just a quarterback, like a read option, he just keeps it a couple times, or scrambling out on when you go 5 wide and no one's in the middle of the field on third down. You need the quarterback that can tuck it and run and pick up a first down for you to keep the chains going. And that's kind of what really stands apart about Quinn is he's great in the pocket and out of the pocket.
and he's a surprisingly good runner. However, when he's moving out of the pocket, he looks to make plays down the field and keeps his eyes like on his receivers, and instead of looking to immediately run, which, I mean, kind of like JT, as soon as he didn't have one of his top, like Thomas or KJ Hill like that, he would take off and run. And I mean, that's great for an Urban Meyer offense, but Day wants someone that can be able to scan the field.
Yeah, I got to ask this for Johnny then. Is Quinn, I mean, I saw his athletic ability on film. We're going to show a little bit here in the huddle film, obviously, that he can move. I mean, he's definitely not a stiff. But he reminds me a little bit of a Trevor Lawrence athletically. Is that kind of?
Yeah, I was going to say Andy Dalton.
Oh man, you're going to scare you got a lot of Bengals fans listening. I don't know about that.
Really, Andy Dalton.
Oh man. Well, guys, you take that how you want.
If you watched him at TCU, you know he was a pretty darn good runner.
He could run a little bit. TCU, for granted, he's not that anymore. I mean, we're thinking about him, Dallas Cowboy, late Cincinnati Bengal, but early on, that's fair. That's fair. Because I mean, Trevor Lawrence kind of shocked people with his speed, and I kind of feel like when I watch Quinn, he shocks you a little bit when he gets on the open field. I'm not saying he's Michael Vick by any stretch of the imagination.
No, he's a solid runner. I mean, he's gonna be able to make plays. We're going to run some options for him, some quarterback counters every once in a while, just kind of keep the defense honest. But I mean, he's going to make plays for us on the ground.
So what do you think? What is it about? How advanced is he? He's got a strong arm. He can move around a little bit. Okay, let's talk about accuracy. How is he solid accurately, or is he like Joe Milton in high school accurate? I mean, is he? Where is he? Is it accuracy?
He's not quite Kyle McCord, where he's like where you watch him on those when he rolls out and he throws dimes 40 yards across his body. He's not quite that level of accuracy, but also he has more mobility than someone like McCord. But I mean, he can play. If you watch his first few plays of highlights, you see him placing the ball over the defender's shoulders. He's throwing the receivers open, which is very tough to do in high school, and he's doing it in Texas on one of the biggest stages. And biggest conferences in high school in Texas, especially probably in the country. And he's throwing these wide receivers open, which is pretty impressive, especially since his junior film really isn't out, and you can just watch mostly his sophomore film. And that's, I mean, not a lot of sophomores are doing that. If there's a guy open, say in the zone or something like that, then he'll hit him. But if you watch Ewers, he's throwing the guys to the zone where they are at.
And obviously, when you recruit a high school player, you recruit him for potential, not for what he is. So what does Ryan Day see in him potentially going forward? Like any scout, I mean, like you as a scout, I don't even have to say what Ryan Day sees. What does Dylan Freeman as a scout see this kid potentially down the road? I mean, what kind of player do you see?
He's a playmaker. He's kind of like Lawrence. He's going to lead your offense. He's going to be the catalyst, kind of like Justin Fields. You trust him. He's going to be able to open up the whole playbook. There's not going to be anything that he can't do. And especially with the talent we have in wide receiver, as good as he is, he's going to be a distributor early on, because that's all he's going to have to do, hopefully, with the talent we have assembled at wide receiver. But towards the end of his career, and the more it goes on and the more he gets, the reps he gets, he's going to be able to play, and he's going to be able to make all the throws in the offense, and there's not going to be a shortened playbook. I mean, even Fields early on, he had a shortened playbook. But you can see it now, just the concepts are getting more and more advanced, and that's something that Quinn, I mean, his offense is pretty advanced. Southern Carroll, they have a pretty good offense, and kind of their strategy and like how they scheme people open. And that's something that he already has a pretty good knowledge on. So I think Day is going to be able to kind of give him a little more reign than even Fields had early on.
So if he comes in, he's going to be a straight challenger for at least a backup QB job, is what you're saying. I mean,
yeah, I think. I mean, he just has the arm talent that he has leadership. You watch him; he's firing up his guys. He leads, and he's a winner. And that's kind of what you want at quarterback. And I mean, Urban's one of his biggest things is, are you a winner? And Quinn is a winner, and he just happened to be gifted with one of the best arms. And if you watch him, he dances in the pocket, and when the defenders are there, he knows how to avoid them. Kind of like I watched you guys your last show. Fields, he's gotten a lot better at avoiding the sacks. And that's one of the great things about Quinn is he doesn't take a lot of those because he has such great presence, and he's calm, and he avoids the pass rushers. One of the best I've seen recently.
That's good to know. So he's going to come in pretty ready. He'll probably enroll early too. They all do. But so let me ask you something. Okay, now we got to talk about two things before we go. One, what is his character like? I mean, I'm sure he's a good kid. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to ever assume somebody's a bad kid. But is there possibly like we're overlooking some things because he's so good, or is he really just the real deal? He's just a great kid.
I think he's a fiery competitor, and I mean, everyone was talking about Paris Johnson when they showed his highlight film, and he was talking to the guys after he pancaked them. He has a little bit of that fieriness to him, but at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of kids that are like that, and I mean, some are going to say Baker Mayfield, just kind of that, you know what I mean, just from that.
Well, you kind of want that, don't you, in your quarterback?
You want the guy who's going to be talking, and it doesn't even have to be trash talk. You know, he's just going to be firing up his team. He's kind of letting them know that we're coming for him. That's just who he is, and I mean, I don't really know if he's quiet on or off the field, but I know that he's very vocal, and he's revving every engine. He's kind of making sure everything's up to go and that their team's running, or else he's going to figure out what's wrong and how he can fix it.
And one last thing, he's a 2022 kid. Okay, it's a long ways off. Is there any threat, like, okay, Oklahoma all of a sudden keeps knocking on his door or whatever? I mean, whomever. I know that recent Buckeye writers have said that Oklahoma's not even a threat, but right now they might not be, but who knows a year from now. Do you foresee anything being a problem recruiting wise, or do you think this kid is done to Ohio State, unless Ryan Day leaves, barring something like that, but I mean, like if the whole staff's in place, we got Corey Dennis, Ryan Day, everybody's in play. By the way, Corey Dennis deserves major props for helping land this kid. He's becoming a star quickly. But we'll talk about that another day. But do you think there's any possible threat, like, watch this team?
I don't necessarily think that there's any team to watch, but like you mentioned, it is so long to go. There's so many things that can change. Quarterback rosters and their depth change. You never know. Let's say Texas loses a backup quarterback, you know what I mean? That would give him the starting opportunity again if Herman's gone. There's plenty of time to watch, but I mean, he has a cabin in Ohio. He's familiar with Ohio and Columbus area, so he knows the area, and so it's not like he's just committing. Never, like, I'm not sure if he's been on campus, but I know that he's never like a lot of these schools, he's never been around on their campus, and I know that he has been on campus because we offered him early on. But a lot of these schools he's never been to. And so I think that there's a good shot that he does take some visits, and not necessarily even official, but just kind of on his own with his family. But I mean, the reason that we went out is Dennis, and that's the big thing. And I don't see Dennis going anywhere. And I think if he stays and Day stays, then I don't see any problem with that.
Well, we appreciate you being on with us, Dylan, to discuss this. Where can people see you? I mean, you're on Twitter, man. I mean, where can people find your work?
I'm on Twitter at Dylan Freeman VP. I'd like to talk during the games and kind of point out things I'm noticing, kind of break down a few of the defensive struggles, kind of and positive as well. But that's kind of where I'm at, and I'd like to talk during the game. If you have any questions, DM me. I'm more than happy. I love talking sports, and especially Buckeyes. So if you have any questions or just want to talk about Ohio State, always shoot me a DM.
Yeah, we've been friends with Dylan, Johnny, and I for a while now, and Dylan's always got the goods. And make sure you follow him on Twitter. Dylan, thanks for coming on and discussing this beyond what I could discuss. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Of course, no problem. Thank you, guys.
No problem, buddy. That's been Scarlet and Gray, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you again.